The video begins with the introduction of Pat, a Fort Vancouver volunteer and this video's narrator. Pat is dressed in period-appropriate clothes, which include a long-sleeved white blouse, a checkered vest, a silky light blue cravat, and black trousers. He has a blonde and white peppered beard that matches the hair on the sides of his head, with the top clean-shaven. Periodically, throughout this video, the camera shifts from closer to longer shots. The longer shots reveal heavily stocked shelves behind Pat, stacked neatly with books, cloth, wood, string, colorful pitchers and bowls, and various other household goods. At Pat's side, a desk holds a ledger book and a feather pen. A long wooden table covered with various trade items is in the foreground. Throughout the video, images also are shown to help with the visualization of trade shop topics. Each of these images will be described briefly as well.
Hi, my name is Pat. I'm a volunteer at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site, and I'm here to tell you about one of the buildings. And it's actually the building that we're in. It's called the Indian Trade Shop, and as you could probably guess from the name, it's where Native people traded with the people here at Fort Vancouver.
The first image, in this series of 4, features a view of the Indian Trade Shop's exterior from an angle that makes this building look larger at the end closest to the viewer. It's not, though. It's actually rectangular and roughly symmetrical. The building is mainly constructed from unfinished wood timbers that have darkened from exposure to the elements. It has 2 doors, plus windows in the front and on the sides. The only color on the structure is the crimson of the doors and window trim, contrasting with the white panes of the window frame. Blue sky fills the area behind the building's tall and triangular roof. The next 3 black and white illustrations are shown on the screen at the same time. The first shows a company clerk inspecting an animal pelt while sitting at his desk. He is drawn dressed in a light blouse, a dark vest and a cravat. Behind him are shelves filled with books, fabrics and blankets. A desk littered with tools, a ledger, a pen and other items fills the foreground. The second image focuses on a Native American trader who is examining a raffle at the trade shop counter. The man has long dark hair and wears a patterned cape. In front of him is the counter, again covered with tools, small items, and an open ledger. It also has one of its merchandise packed drawers pulled out, to show it is filled with more items for sale. The third image shows a man dressed in a light shirt, a stocking hat, and a dark vest who is rowing a package-filled canoe near a large boat on a river. The large boat has drawn its sails and is near the river's bank. On the bank, a fort building, and a thick forest can be seen in the background.
If I stood behind the desk here, I was either a clerk or perhaps I was the post doctor, because the doctor had other jobs. One of the jobs was running this store. So I spoke English if I was back here. But the people that walk through the front door might speak a tribal language, or they might speak French, or some other language. So what they did was they came up with a language called Chinook Wawa, or Chinook jargon.
This series of 5 background images and 1 video clip starts by showing a bright sky, sprinkled with dark and light clouds, hanging over the Indian Trade Shop and Fort Palisade. Next to the Indian Trade Shop, there is a building that looks similar, only smaller. On the grassy field in front of the 2 buildings, visitors can be seen exploring the grounds. The second image focuses on an illustration of a Native American woman with shiny black hair and red pants. With her hands, she clutches the edges of the white blanket, shawled around her, and the barrel of the rifle. A group of vibrantly dressed people of various ages and nationalities are clustered nearby and around her. The third image shows a group of volunteers, dressed in brightly colored outfits, performing tasks outside the Indian Trade Shop. On one side of the picture, 2 women are carrying woven baskets. One woman is facing the camera and smiling, and the other is facing a couple of men and children in the other direction. One of those men is holding up a wooden wagon missing a wheel. The other is holding a wooden mallet, and the 2 girls are watching them work. The video then shows a clip of a modified British flag blowing in the wind. The flag has a red base, a small Union Jack in the corner and the letters H, B, C, which stand for Hudson's Bay Company, in white. A bright cloudy sky and the silhouette of a fort building can be seen in the background. The fourth image is an illustration of the fort during its time of trade. In the foreground, a group of 3 Native Americans, wearing tribal robes and feathers, can be seen sitting on a muted field of grass. Further back, there are more clusters of people and a gated pasture. Wood buildings, the fort's palisade and large fir trees are drawn in the background. To demonstrate the importance of invention in this era, the fifth image zooms in on a simple line illustration of what looks to be a pelt processing machine. A woman sits in the front of the machine to handle its many parts. It is composed of several long planks, wheels and pulleys. A flattened pelt is coming out of the back of the machine.
And it was used in the village where the people lived. It was used to trade. So I'll give you an example. So if someone walked through the door and they said, "Hoi hoi," that means trade. And if they said, "Hoi hoi pasisi," pasisi means blanket. So I would understand that they wanted to trade hoi hoi for a pasisi, a blanket. And we could start negotiating at that point. And there really wasn't much negotiation. The prices were set. And it was all based not really on money. There was no cash used here. Of course, it was before the days of credit cards. But what they used was trade. And that was the way the world worked here. Native people had been trading since, as they say, since time immemorial, since as long as they could remember. So the British came in with this business. They decided to use that trade system that was already in place and trade with the native people. Now imagine you're a native person in the 1840s and you've never really needed any of this stuff during your life. You've been living in this area, or your family's been living in this area for generations. But all of a sudden, you have things that you've never seen before. It would be kind of like you or me going to a new tech exhibit or a trade show or something like that, and seeing all these gadgets that we know we could do without, but we know they'd be fun to have. Beaver was kind of the standard.
The first video clip in this series of mostly photographic imagery features a beaver holding a stick in shallow water. It has a peanut-shaped body, round ears, a bear-like snout, and streaky brown fur. It dips the stick up and down and creates ripples in its murky habitat. The bank in the background is sandy and scattered with driftwood. A photograph then is shown of stacked beaver pelts. One can still see indents where the ears, eyes, and nose had been on the live beaver. The next image zooms in on a historical fur trading chart that resembles a modern-day spreadsheet. The column titles on the top of the chart reads bears, beaver, and foxes. Underneath these legible titles are more specifications and numbers. The third photograph features a gray wolf pelt hanging limply over the side of a wooden table. Its ears, eye sockets and snout can be distinguished despite the flatness of the fur. Underneath the wolf are 2 more brown and unspecified pelts. The fourth image shows a wall of wooden shelves bearing dozens of colorful, folded blankets. One section of the wall carries bright red and black patterned blankets. The second and third columns are filled with multicolored blankets of green, blue, red, white, and black. The fifth image zooms in on one of the blankets from the shelves that are described above. The camera focuses on a white, fuzzy blanket with thin, short, and dark black stripes. These stripes were called points and allowed the traders to keep track of their size and value. The sixth image focuses on a stack of several rolls of linen. They are dyed light blue, daisy yellow, forest green, royal purple, and coral. The seventh image shows a white label sewn on a green cloth product. The label includes the Hudson's Bay Company logo, seal of quality, and the product's specifics embroidered in gold. The eighth image features 4 pelts of different origins placed on a wooden plank.
Everything was compared to a beaver. That was called a made beaver. It was a certain size, certain quality. Everything else was judged as compared to that. So 2 otters, for example, equaled 1 beaver. 1 gray wolf equaled 1 beaver. So you get the idea. So things were priced at how many beavers you could get for it. So, for example, those Hudson Bay blankets would be, depending upon the size, valued at 1 beaver or 2 beavers, and so on. So a small blanket would be worth 1 beaver, and a larger blanket would be maybe 2 beavers, and so on. And the blankets were divided into categories by size and indicated by something called points. They had marks on them. And that was how you could tell the size. If you, just by looking at one, you could tell the size just by looking at the number of points on it. You could get linen from Ireland. You could get silk from China. You could get fabric from India and Europe to make your own clothing. And you could get a couple of shirts for a beaver. So it was all beaver-based, I guess you could say, was the way the prices worked. So in the case of the Hudson's Bay Company, they were trading extremely valuable furs for things that were valuable to the people but cost a lot less. So that was how they were able to make a profit, because the things that were offered for trade here didn't cost the Hudson's Bay Company anywhere close to the value they received from the furs.
The last audio described portion of this video focuses on the desk with the ledger book and feather pen previously described. In the ledger book, columns of notes are written in illegible cursive. Pat uses the book and pen as a prop when he talks about its use.
So that's how they ran a profitable business. This book is called the ledger book, and the clerks or whoever was running the store would write the transactions into the ledger book and record them. So for example, if I was trading with someone about a beaver hide, I might write in the book that I traded so-and-so for a beaver hide in exchange for a blanket. And that is how the Hudson's Bay Company kept their records, and that is how the historians here know some of the things that were actually contained in the store.